Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I'm joined by the amazing team of Matt and Tom of the Scariest Cut. How you doing today, guys?
Great. What's up?
Doing good.
It is an honor to have you guys. This is something that's been a very long time in the making. So to finally be able to have you guys here and talk about how this all started for you is super intense for me. But before we actually start, I would like for the people that don't know you to get to know you a little bit. The Scariest Cut are a family of horror movie enthusiasts hailing from the small state of Rhode Island. They are on a mission to remove the stigma around horror and create a tight-knit community of fellow horror fans. And what I love about that, it doesn't matter what background you have. The minute you find out that someone's a horror fan, you're all in. You know, it doesn't matter if you're black, white, gay, straight, Christian, Muslim. It doesn't matter anymore. Now you're just a horror fan. So,
Absolutely.
what made you guys decide to actually start the podcast?
So we started Originally, we started doing some shorts on YouTube.
Yeah, we filming shorts back in the day with different name, Horrifically Amateur Productions, because we were pretty amateur.
Yeah, very much. And then, kind of just switched over to be like, let's try a show of some sort.
Yeah, some content creation, and I don't know, we love talking horror, and it's just fun to do this kind of stuff.
Pandemic definitely changed the shorts a little bit, so
oh yeah,
had to work around that, and then kind of just ended up doing this and moved into the Scariest Cut stuff eventually, just evolving.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I think that's the best thing about becoming a content creator is if you go back now and you watch or you listen to the stuff that you did when you first started, you're like, oh boy. Oh boy.
Did that recently and regret it.
So it is nice to have that evolution because if you stay the same course, you're obviously not improving. And I think that's our goal all the time is to always have some area of improvement in what we're doing. You guys have various content segments for your channel as well as live streaming. And like I just said, you're constantly working on improving, doing your best to create engagement and entertaining content. And I feel like with the horror community, it really is that. It's a community. We all want each other to succeed. There's obviously every tree has a couple bad apples. I just talked about this a couple episodes ago, and you're going to have those gatekeeper douchebags. But overall, it's a very welcoming community that just wants nothing except for people to succeed. So where can people find your guys' stuff?
TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all that shit. We're at the Scariest Cut.
Yeah. Well, and the best thing is, guys, you don't have to remember that because you already know. I've got other links down in the description. So that way you can follow them, subscribe to them, become a part of the Scariest Cut family because as we all know, as horror fans, we're all going to have different ideas about the same things. So it's nice to get other perspectives on things we don't like. Maybe it can bring us an appreciation on them, or maybe we can hear someone tell us something that they like about something that we don't, and kind of change our minds a little bit. So, having you guys here is something that's been very, very special for me. But for people that haven't heard the show, what exactly do you guys do with the Scariest Cut?
Let's hear it.
This keeps changing, actually.
Yes, this evolves.
So we were doing for a while. We were doing the TikTok shorts and like Instagram shorts. That was roughly a minute, a little bit under, of just focusing on what we picked out as our favorite scenes for movies.
Yeah, the scariest
cuts.
Exactly.
And now what are we doing?
Well, now we're on YouTube. We have a bunch of different segments we're doing. We're doing like icon versus icon horror battles. We have all kinds of segments in there. We still do the Scariest Cuts. They're probably like 30-minute episodes where we talk about, one film, and we'll each pick a list of our 3 favorite moments from the film, chat about that a little bit.
Horror movies that went too far.
Horror movies that went too far. This is our producer in the corner. We can show him. Yeah, this is my cousin, James.
He hides in the back.
Yeah, so movies that went too far, so
hey!
That's James. So Necromantic, The Shining. What do we do?
Just did Hostel,
stuff like that. So we just have fun with it.
See, and that's what I love because with Sledgehammer Horror, obviously we do the same thing. We have Didn't See That Coming. We have Versus. We have In Defense Of. We have My First Horror Movie. And I feel like as a content creator, that really helps you to stay the course. It's a lot easier for you to stay driven when you're working on different segments because if one starts to get a little stale, you've got 3 or 4 other ones you can go, well, hey, I got a good idea for this. Let's focus on this for now. We'll come back to this one later and we'll go back. It's just like when you're in a band, sometimes you need other people to come in and be like, yo, check out this guitar line. What can you add to this? Well, that's, let me see what I can do with that. It takes that feeling of staleness away when you're trying to move on from one segment to another. So Man, it's amazing to learn what you guys do with the Scariest Cut, and I hope every single one of you are already following and subscribed to the channel by now. But in order to do the Scariest Cut and be a part of this horror community, horror had to start for you somewhere, guys. So now I would like to go back to the past and talk about what it was that got you started in the horror genre. Your first horror movie, and I'll start with you first this time, Matt. Your first horror movie was?
My first horror movie was, as far as I remember, an American Werewolf.
Without a love of my own.
That's just a swell movie you're talking about.
Oh, there it is.
Nice.
Absolutely one of my favorite movies of all time. Very, very special movie to me as well. So I can't wait to talk about that. And what about you, Tom? What was your first horror movie?
The greatest werewolf film to come out of the 80s, 1985's Silver Bullet. All right, it's not the best, but it happened.
I will tell you this. After watching that movie, I was wishing that my Uncle Red would get me a silver bullet.
Oh, hell
That's all
yeah.
I wanted after watching this movie. Like, I want that silver bullet. So I started with you last time, Matt, but Tom, for a minute here with Silver Bullet, do you remember about how old you were the first time you had seen it?
God, it must have been probably late 80s. So, sometime probably between 6 and 8 years old. Yeah. I was actually hanging out with his brother in my basement. So we're from Rhode Island. I lived in Vegas for a couple of years and they don't have basements there. So some people don't get it. But the basement over here in New England, it's dark, it's damp, right? It's scary.
Special place.
It's scary. So for this movie to just be on the TV, we had cable back then. So we didn't have all these iPads that kids have nowadays. So this was our babysitter. This was the entertainment for us.
Dude, I can't agree more. Like, I remember watching the TV Guide channel, like hoping to see a horror movie coming on HBO or Showtime. You didn't have a guide where you could just hit and scroll through even on TV. You either had to grab that shitty little book, the TV Guide magazine, or you had to sit there and wait. And we've talked about it before, and you guys are kind of my age. And when we were young, YouTube for us, because I was very lucky. I'll never take it for granted. My mom and dad owned a mom and pop video store. It's called Downtown Video. And YouTube for me was walking up and down the aisles, looking at the cover arts, trying to decide which cover art looked the best. And I think that's why I'm still such a big physical media collector and why I still love cover arts, why they're still so important to me, because growing up, that's what I determined movies off of. And whether you love or hate Silver Bullet, that had some dope cover art. Like, when you see it for the first time, you were like, "Ooh, I like this a lot." So yeah, it's a very fun movie. If anything else, it's fun. And there are some real emotions throughout that movie, which we'll get to. Now, Matt, we know that you were young the first time that you had watched American Werewolf in London, but do you remember who you were with the first time that you had seen it?
Yeah, so I was with my dad. He's who got me into horror. He's always had them on. So I would always try to watch them, but they'd always freak me out. And this one definitely was one of those that just hit me. And I remember the rest of the movie I kind of watched behind a pillow.
Which is funny because at all times, Jack is sitting next to me at all times, man. Like,
yeah, I got the same one.
It's funny. Like, we just went to Horror Hound this August in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I got to meet David Naughton, and he was the sweetest, coolest dude. Like, I was shaking getting ready to meet him, and he was just the coolest dude, which made it that much better. To meet this guy that was still like, "Come here, let me get a picture with you and your whole family." And it was really cool. He was one of the high points of that con for us. So, so you watched it with your dad for the first time. And now, obviously, what I love about this is we're doing a werewolf double feature. And God damn it, that's amazing to me. But Matt, what would you say was the scene that affected you the most from American Werewolf?
Yeah, I remember back then the scene that really got me was the underground subway scene. Just weird, you'd think it was the transformation or something, but that scene, the first time you see the werewolf, like how big it looked, and it's only a glimpse, but that was enough to be like, "No, fuck this. I'm too young. I'm scared."
And when you see the fear on the guy's face when he's trying to get back to the escalator, that's one of those moments where you're just like, "Oh, you're fucked, dude." Like, even as a kid, you were like, "Oh, we're at a point of view shot. Oh, you're done. That's a wrap."
Yeah, and that's like the good, like, there's a minute of tension before him like running, and just the werewolf's point of view kind of feels like the Evil Dead camera.
Yeah,
it's kind of just moving fast but low. And yeah,
I love what they did with that whole movie. There's so many great moments of fear. It's a true love story, like it really is. With David and Alex, definitely a love story. It's also very funny moments too. So that's why I think it's such a beloved film. Now, Silver Bullet is another film that does have a lot of effective scenery, and I think that the werewolf transformation in Silver Bullet is a lot better than people give it credit for, especially the reverse transformation at the end. But what scene would you say it was, Tom, that affected you the most from Silver Bullet?
So mine was when he's on this little dock or whatever, shooting off fireworks, and yeah, the werewolf is just kind of stalking him, and then it gets closer and closer, and he sees this thing about to attack him, and you're freaking out like this, this kid's in a wheelchair, like he's screwed, and he takes one of the the rockets and shoots it right into his eye. But it's kind of scary because they do a real close up of this thing, and his face is just freaking out, and he he fucking gets on that silver bullet and he blasts off. But yeah, just watching that, I was just so scared for the kid at the time because the kid was probably a little older than me,
Right.
When I was watching this thing, and I just put myself in his shoes, probably.
Yeah. Well, and you have that. It's so funny because like I just watched. Obviously, I've watched these movies a lot, but I just rewatched Silver Bullet to kind of freshen up. And it's so funny because the next day, the sister goes like door to door looking for people. Like, how many eyes does this person have? We're looking for the person with one eye. Like, just knocking at every door, going at every restaurant. At one point, she goes in the bar, like going around looking at people's eyes to see who got shot with the rocket. So, I will say, performance-wise, this is probably my favorite Gary Busey film because
I love him in this.
The perfect level of unhinged in this movie. Like, he's not way over the top Gary Busey, but he's enough over the top to where you're like, yeah, it's definitely Gary Busey playing this role.
I'm trying to think of if I have an uncle like this, or if I'm that guy. God damn it!
It might be you.
I hope it's not me, but yeah, he's so fun. He ad-libbed most of those lines, I guess. Stephen King was like cool with it. I don't know. So
King was like,
great
what am I gonna say? No, the guy's gonna bite my face off if I say
yeah,
no.
I don't know. But yeah, great performance, really fun. Corey Haim, right? He was the other one in this. Yeah, he did a great job too.
Right. Well, and another thing about this film is it stood the test of time with the message of the silver bullet. And that to me is one of the coolest points when you have the shot maker that makes the silver bullet and he gives it to Gary Busey. Gary Busey feels like such an idiot, but like when you actually, I wanted a silver bullet when I was a kid so bad, like get a necklace and create a silver bullet. I just thought that was the coolest idea. So I felt it stayed really true to the werewolf lore in that area. So this next question is actually for both of you about your first horror movies. I try to split up the questions a little bit, but both of these movies are old enough now to where we can bring this up. And I'll start with you this time, Tom. Remakes, requels, sequels, all the rage. It always has been. Would you like to see Silver Bullet get a remake or a requel today?
No. I'm gonna say I'm not big into the remakes of these movies. And honestly, for what it was at the time, it's just it's a feel-good werewolf movie. You're just not gonna get that out of the movies these days. You're not. It just has a certain feel that you probably could only get from the 80s. So leave it alone. Just leave it alone.
I agree. And I gotta ask you, Matt. We talk about the remakes, requels, sequels. We did get an American Werewolf in Paris. It came out on Christmas and ruined my Christmas there a couple years ago. But no, it's so funny because a good friend of mine, his name's Josh. You guys know the band Coheed and Cambria?
Yeah, absolutely.
He's the drummer for Coheed. And he was telling us about how that movie came out because his American Werewolf is his favorite movie of all time. And him and Kwame, they got together to go see American Werewolf in Paris on Christmas Day. And they were leaving the theater, and Kwame was like, "That movie ruined my Christmas." Like he was like genuinely super bummed and upset about it. So I got to make that joke whenever we talk about this episode or that movie. But have you seen American Werewolf in Paris? And if so, what were your thoughts on that?
I just rewatched it like 2 weeks ago. It's so I was born in the 90s, so I saw that one also very young, especially after American Werewolf in London. It's got a bit of nostalgia for me, but I know it's a horrible movie, so I hate watch it occasionally.
It's got a good Bush song in it, though.
Oh yeah, no, the soundtrack is pretty good.
Yeah,
I think it falls into what the other films that to me personally, my top 3 practical effect films of all time are American Werewolf in London, Nightmare on Elm Street, and John Carpenter's The Thing. Those are my top 3 practical effect films, and all the remakes, requels, and prequels in this case happen the same way. They all took what the original did so well, and they brought it back into just the shittiest looking CGI instead of practical.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I'm so bummed on those 3 movies. I don't think any of them were like god awful, terrible movies. But if you could have done the practical effects throughout Paris, the Elm Street remake, and the Thing prequel, I think that. And what makes me even more pissed is they shot the Thing prequel with all practical effects, and then they went into the studio. It's like, yeah, put CGI on it. Like, you broke dicks. So we got a hard no on both of these getting remade, correct?
Yeah, now I would have a few years ago liked to have seen Edgar Wright, Simon Pegg, and Nick Frost try to do American Werewolf in London. Just because I love that group, like Shaun the Dead, another top for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think they had like the right stuff to do it, but now they've all aged out a bit.
God damn, that would have been great. Like, I never even thought of that. Like, seeing seeing those guys play, David and Jack, like that would have been
love to
so
see Nick
good.
Frost as Jack.
Oh my god, that'd be amazing. Seeing Simon Pegg as David, like that would be so good, man. Ugh, I just got like a hate boner. I'm so mad that this didn't happen. So we talk about your guys' first horror movies and what these 2 movies mean to you guys. And it's amazing that we got 2 werewolf movies. And I haven't talked about Silver Bullet at all. And then I talked about it in my last episode and now this episode. So I'm super stoked that I get to talk a little bit about Silver Bullet. But I do want to throw you guys a little bit of a curveball here for a second. Tom, you're going to get to sit and think on this one. Matt, you're going to go off the seat of your pants. We talked about your first horror movie, but now my little buddy Ghostface is here, and he has a question for you. What's your favorite scary movie, Matt? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Yeah, so we do get asked this a lot, and ironically, my favorite horror movie is American Werewolf in London. To this day, yeah, it's held up for me. I watch it every year. I have a big tattoo on my back that kind of is for that. I love it.
I can't argue.
Yeah.
Did you watch the Creepshow TV series at all?
Yeah, we
yeah.
both love that.
Dude, did you watch the Nazi werewolf episode?
Yes, I love.
Dude, when that happened, I was
man.
like, dude, I was like, no fucking way, they're doing a Nazi werewolf thing right now.
Yeah,
that
was
so
great.
Fucking awesome, man.
That's one of my favorite episodes.
Oh, me too. Absolutely, hands down. I'm gonna ask him. Hold on, goddamn. All right, Tom. So now my little buddy Ghostface has a question for you as well.
Boy.
What's your favorite scary movie, Tom? What is your favorite horror movie?
I would say mine is Evil Dead 2. I just love everything about that film. It's fun. It's got good gore and like effects, and it's just, I don't know. There's something about that film that still holds up. And for me, it's rewatchability. When I think about a great film, like some of the ones you mentioned, The Thing, The Exorcist, obviously top 10 films.
Sure.
But there's just something special about Evil Dead 2, man.
The very first piece of fan fiction I ever wrote was an Evil Dead 2 sequel that took place 40 years after the events of Evil Dead, because we never found out what happened to Professor Noby. We know what happened to Henrietta, but we never found out what happened to Professor Noby in the movie. So what would have happened if that was the first piece of fan fiction I ever wrote? So, like with these movies, I think I really have that butterfly effect way of life where if we wouldn't have watched our first horror movies when we watched them, we may not be the same people we are today. The Scariest Cut might not exist without American Werewolf or Silver Bullet. So before I let you guys go, I want to bounce back to your first horror movies. And I'll start with you first this time, Tom. But what we're going to do is rank Silver Bullet on a skull count. Now, we're not ranking it on acting, production, score, direction, throwing snakes at sisters. We're not ranking it on anything like that. All we're doing is ranking it on how much it affected you on your first viewing. So 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. Tom, what would your ranking of Silver Bullet be?
Tough one. It's not a 5. It's probably, I don't know. I'm going to give it a 4, though. I remember being very frightened of it as a child. Not now. Okay, not now. I'm not scared of it anymore. But yeah, I'm going to give it a solid 4.
Well, and I think that the thing is with this movie, even when he's not the wolf, even when he's the preacher, he's fucking terrifying.
Seriously.
And everything he does, whether it was this, the people under the stairs, it's just like, he's so fucking scary. And I love him to death. He's so good. He's the reason I'm so nervous about the People Under the Stairs remake coming out, because you have to cast somebody just as good as him.
I know.
Good fucking luck. So back over to you, Matt. We're talking about American Werewolf. 0 skulls being not effective, 5 extremely effective. What would you rank American Werewolf?
Yeah, I think it's got to be a 5. It's still my favorite movie. It holds up. It's definitely a 5 for me.
And like I said, even the comedy lands.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it's one of those movies that is just it's absolutely phenomenal, and everything about it is so good. It's damn near perfect, man. So again, I cannot disagree with you on that one. And I love the fact that a theory I've always had is that when Jack died in the moors, he died. Because if he was just a spirit coming back to see David, he wouldn't be doing this. He
Yeah.
wouldn't be deteriorating. So I've always kind of looked at Jack as like David's own mental state. And the further he drifts into becoming the werewolf, the more deteriorated his mind gets.
Yeah.
That's how much more deteriorated Jack's physical appearance is. But I do love when he comes in, he's like, "You gonna eat your toast?" Like,
Oh, yeah,
that's
that-
one of my favorite. Anytime I walk in on somebody eating breakfast, I'm always like, "Hey, you gonna eat your toast?" And they're like, "What? Do you want my
Yeah.
toast?" No, fucker, it's a movie
Griffin
reference.
Dunn
So
was amazing in that.
oh, he was so good, man. So good. So I said it at the beginning, guys, but we're at the end of the 3rd act. The credits are about to roll and the curtain's about to drop. But before that happens, another reminder, I have all their social media links and the link for the show down in the description. So please make sure you're following, make sure you're subscribing, do the due justice, not for me, not for them, for yourselves, because you want to become a part of this horror family as well. Tom, Matt, please don't go anywhere. I have a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. It helps our channel more than you know. And follow Sledgehammer Horror on social media. Our links are in the description as well. But until next time, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.